create all the requests coming from that particular port. Let's say we have created a port P1, which is separate from the, which is different from the main integration server port like 555 or any other port on which integration server is running. So in that case, what we have in that case we have don't have to create the web services again. We have to make the changes or configuration in this alias only with respect to giving a new port details. So this is purely with respect to the provider part. Now what happened? Let's say this has been done in the development environment. So let's say this server will be some like 1.1.1, and the port will be, let's say the web service port has been defined as a 5896. Now this IV address has been exposed to this consumer B. So consumer B is using the connectors and it is hitting the service on this IP address and port. So once the code is migrated to, let's say, test environment, now we have a test environment. Now again, in the test environment, the server and IP address will be completely different. So in that case, again we can change the port details here. So let's say with the port of this port and IP address of test environment is something else like 1234, and the port is 1111. Okay, in that case, now again we have to share this information to the consumer so that they at runtime they will give you the different port name and IP address. Now the service will be hitting to this. Since so whatever we have done at design time, it can be configurable at runtime. So for those reasons, like we have defined an alias as a. So similarly, if we go to in a similar way, we can go to the production and we have to just change the aliases, and the same IP address has to be shared to the consumer part. So that's why the alias comes into picture.
Okay.
Okay, is it clear?
Yeah. And you have given some POCs, right? In that you mentioned that call the connector from another flow service.
Yes,
Connector in the sense like will create only the provider and consumer here, right?
yes,
Then what is connector?
okay. Once you create a consumer, have you noticed like there are some other extra things are also created?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
how you call the services provided by a provider?
By using Wisdom.
Okay, that is like by using visual. You need visual is just basic information about the provider service. But we like say from a web methods perspective, someone has given you a visual file. Okay, now how you are going to call that service? Let's say a particular Java application has given you a visual file, and they say like okay, create a consumer for it, and you can hit it and get the response. So there should be something is which entity should run to call the provider service and get the response back, right? That particular entity is called as a connector. Okay,
Okay.
for example, let's say the web service which has been created here, right? For that I have created a consumer. Okay, now you see the same consumer like having a four operations, and for each operations there will be a connector. Okay, now this is the main service which we use from web methods to call the provider. Okay,
Okay.
we don't use this column. It's just for information like this has been created. For each operation there will be a connector, and we use this connector like let's say we have to call this connector in the flow services, and then we pass all the required information like input parameter and the authentication and all those details, and we get the response. So basically the connector is the way in web methods to call to the provider web service.
Okay.
Any other question?
No, please.
What what about you, Surya? Like you got everything clear?
Uh, Not exactly.
Okay. Can you tell me like what are your queries?
No, actually, I asked Surya to stop practicing on that. So we'll start it on Sunday and Saturday and Sunday.
Okay,
So
okay.
he has, uh, he's a fresher, right? So I asked him to start working along with me.
Okay, fine, fine.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, so today, for this handler service, like I didn't get the time to create it. I have like created a demo in 80 to 90% of it. So give me one more day, guys. Like I will show it to you for tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Okay, is it fine, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Piyush.
Okay. So, uh, in that case, like we will start with then adapter services. Okay, let's create some package. What do you start? Okay, we'll go with first with the theoretical part. What is basically the adapter services and adapter notification, and then we'll try to do the POC. Just a second. Let's. Okay, so like basically web methods kind of integration tool. So we have been provided with the facilities of connecting to a different kind of systems. Like we have a database, we have a cloud systems, we have let's say SAP. So for different kind of systems to interact with those kind of systems, we have been provided an adapters. So Today, like we are going to discuss about what are the facilities has been provided and the architecture of how a web method integration server is connected to a database. So it can be any database like a Microsoft SQL database or Oracle database or any kind of database. The process is same. So basically, what happens? Let's say we have a database. For example, let's say we'll go with the Oracle. So, for example, the basic information which we need to connect to the Oracle database is like the server details, port of a Oracle server, and the database schema name, and then the table on which we are going to do an operations. Now, in web methods, we have two packages which we call as a WM JDBC, and second is the WMART. So these two packages which is provided by the software AG itself, and through these two packages it has lots of inbuilt services, jar files and methods to connect to the Oracle, to connect to the Oracle database or connect to any other databases. So the first information which we have to provide to connect to our Oracle database is to create a connection. So basically, we'll create a connection at the web methods layer, and in those connection, we'll providing the details of details like what are the Oracle server name, what is the jar file details, port name, and driver type, and how we are going to establish a connections like username, password, and so things. After that, we create a connections. We use that connection to perform the operations. So perform any kind of operation which like normal. Generally in Oracle we have two kind of operation which is DDL and DML operation. So we can perform any data defining language like create a table or create a schema or anything, and then we can do any data manipulation language like update, insert, delete, all those kind of operations. Now, in generally when we write any query in Oracle, let's say if we are using the query using Oracle SQL Developer, generally we'll write like select a star from table. Some, let's say for example we are writing a query of select a statement, then we write like select a star or select something from the table with so and so details. If you're putting a where clause, now in web methods, like we have a three different ways to do that. Generally, web method has provided three kind of component, which we generally call as a first is called as template based. So what does template based means? Like in web methods, for each kind of operation, for example, for select operation, for insert operation, for update operation, a unique template has been provided by web methods. So just you have to select that particular template and configure some information. For example, let's say if you are using a select operation, and while once we create a connection and then we use that particular connection to create a select template, then we have to just provide, then will be open a kind of form like page, and we have to just fill some basic details like what is the table name, what we want to select, and if you want to put any where clause or not. So we don't have to write the full logical code like select a star or select from so and so table with where clause. Every whole the basic statement will be written for you, or you have to just provide the data input. The second way of doing it is like you will have a custom. So the custom part is exactly the similar thing what we do it from the SQL developer. It will give you just a kind of SQL developer GUI kind of thing, and you have to write each and every sentence in that particular, and then you have to execute it. So that is called as the custom template. The last thing, which we call it as a dynamic template. For example, let's say if you are writing any statement, let's say if you are writing a statement called, let's select star from XYZ, let's say, where some particular column, let's say employee equal to 1 2 3. Okay. Now here, if you are writing it from SQL developer, here like the table name and if the where clause, everything is fixed. Like we cannot, whatever we can change at design time. We cannot change this thing at a runtime. Similar way, like while using a template and while using a custom, uh, everything is configured at the design time. Once the service is, whatever the services you have written, that is fixed. At runtime we cannot change anything. But this template, the dynamic template, is such that we can change anything at the runtime. So it will something like a, the same statement will be something appears like this. Select start from table name where column name equal to, okay. So in this statement you can give the table name at the runtime, we can choose the column name at the runtime, even we can choose the whole statement at a runtime. So we can just have one statement where at a runtime we can have a select statement. Someone got disconnected or what?
Sorry, I just want to expand the screen. This
Oh,
option.
okay, okay, okay. Okay. So at what I'm saying, at the runtime we can have full, like some part of the statement to can be changed, or the full statement can be changed itself. So we can have just one template where at runtime if we decide okay we have to use select as query, we can pass the select query. Or let's say in future or after some time we decide okay we'll use the insert statement using the same template, we can use the same statement. So a full statement or some part of the statements are fully configurable at runtime instead of using a design time. So that kind of template is called as a dynamic template. Okay. So once let's say the service is started, we'll show you the demo for these things. If I'm able to connect. Just let me quickly check why my database is not started. Basically I have installed Oracle 11G in my laptop. Okay, so you can get any version of the Oracle installed in your system. Now coming, start with the connection part. So I have created one user which is called as the WBM in my database application. Okay, so I will show you some details like. Okay, so to create a connection, like we have to open the integration server page. We have to go to the adapter tab, like we will have a multiple tabs like server, log, package. So we'll have to click on the adapter tab, then we'll get a link like web methods adapter for JDBC. So once you click on this one, a new tab or new window will be open here, where you have options like you can create a connection, polling notification, and all those things. So we have to select the connection part and then create on configure new connection. So once you click on configure new connection, it will ask you the option like what type of to which application you want to connect. So I'm trying to use JDBC connection, which is for Oracle database. So once you click on this one, it will give you a form like thing where we'll fill the basic details. Now we'll discuss on these things. Like the first thing is like we have a package, folder name, and connection name. So combining all these three things give you basically the location where the connection name will be present. So the package name, like once whatever the package that you have defined in the integration server designer, all those packages will be present here. So you have to just select the any package name apart from whatever the package which has been provided by software AG. So just try avoiding any package with WM. Ideally we should select custom packages. Now after that we just give a folder name. The folder name will be for example, let's say if I'm trying to establish or save up my connection in certain folders. For example, let's say I have created a connection under the package test JDBC and under the folder test JDBC connection, and then finally the main connection is present in the connection folder. So I have to give the fully qualified name of this folder here. So in that scenario, let's say I have to use this package name, and the folder name I have to give the fully qualified name. Fully qualified name is from the package till the main subfolders. And then in the connection name you can give any connection, any name, any unique name. Just we have to follow the Java conventions. So once you give this name, the connection will be stored in the design or in the integration server with this name under this subfolder, under this packages. So basically all these first three information just give you a location where the connection will be presented. Now coming to the connection properties. So we'll discuss this part in the last transaction type. Okay, so the basic thing we have to give here is the data source class. So basically we have to give the jar information. So you just have to like for each type of database, like for Oracle database, for SQL database, for MongoDB, for each kind of database, a unique naming convention has been followed in the software AG, which you will get in the guide itself. And we have to just copy paste from there as to provide the data source class. Basically, this is a jar file which will help to connect to the database. Now, in the third part, we have to give the server name of the database, and then which user we are using and what is the password, and then we have to give the just retype the password in the database and the port number on which the database server is running, and how we want to connect to the database server, like a TCP protocol or any protocol. And if we have to provide any special properties, like let's say if we are using a thick driver or thin driver, so we have to provide all these details in the other properties. Or let's say if a database is in a clustered mode, like we have a 5 set of database, so there will be one clustered URL. So all those extra information we have to provide in the other properties. Okay, now coming to the last part, which is basically connection management properties. So this is the most important part, how the integration server, or from the integration server perspective, connection to a particular database is managed. Okay, now coming to the enable connection polling. So there are two values which we call as a true and a false. So if we set it as a true, by default it will be true. What it will check, it will, the integration server will poll for the connection to the database. Means it will try to check whether we have a connection to the database or not, intermittently and internally. We don't have to do anything extra. So it will be, there will be some internal jobs created in the integration server, which will always try to check, okay, I have a connection to the database or not. If there is no connection, it will try to raise an alert. And now we have minimum pool size, maximum pool size, and pool increment size. Okay, so combining these three is like a concept. Let's say what happens when we create a connection to the database, we have been provided some information like connection pool. So think of it just like a set of box we have, and we have been given some threads here. Let's say we have been given some 10 thread. By using that 10 thread, we can connect to the particular databases. So this setup is generally we provide while creating a configuration. So minimum pool size, maximum pool size, and pool increment size. The maximum pool size, whatever the thread we provide here, is like the maximum number of connections which can be established from this particular, or let's say maximum number of parallel connection which can be used by using this connection name. What I mean to say is, for example, when we create a service, let's say for example we create a insert operation update notification, and to when the operation runs, it try to establish a connection to the Oracle database and then try to execute that particular operation. So once we create an operation, we use a connection to create an operation, and while in connection, we the operation use a particular thread. So let's say if it is using insert operation is using thread 1, update operation is using thread 2, let's say delete notification is using thread 3. So if we are parallelly running 10 operations, so all the 10 threads will be consumed for that particular connection. So that particular details is called as a maximum pool size. So I am allocating a maximum number of thread resource to put this particular connection. So if a particular DDL or DML operation has consumed all the 10 threads, then it will not execute another operation by using the same connection. So we have to take care of this particular word. This pool size is with respect to this particular connection only. It will not be a global kind of thing. So let's say if I have a 10 operations which will be using the same connection, and all the 10 operations are running parallelly, I mean to say all the 10 threads are consuming, and if you try to execute another operation using the same connection, it will not work. Which means I am restricting certain things, like we cannot use more than 10 threads parallelly at a time. Now coming to the minimum pool size, generally we give this one as a 0. So minimum pool size, what exactly it means, if there is no operation running on this particular connection, let's say none of the operation is running, so we don't have to create or establish a connection to the Oracle. So if any operation starts running, then the pool increment size will increase. So the increment size has been given the value as a 1. So what will happen, let's say a scenario where the first we have insert operation, so started running. So as soon as the first operation start running, the pool size was incremented to 1. So now in the pool we have two connections, one which is using this insert operation and one which is available as a free. So if the new operations are coming, it will utilize this connection, and then based on the configuration, the pool size will again increment. So every time the new connection will be created and it will increase till the value of maximum pool size. So on a summary, what will happen? We'll having initial connection as a 0, then every time the new operation will be using the same connection, the connection count will increase. It will become like this. It will reach till 10. After that, we have reached the maximum pool size.
Piyush?
Yeah, Jyoti.
Yeah, it means like when parallelly if there are two if there are two operations are happening, but first it will run only one. Like it will take a first, it will establish a first connection, and after that it will give the second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, like parallelly it won't work, right? Like at a time it won't establish two
No, no,
connection
no, no.
because
No, no. Yeah, it can establish two connections. What I'm trying to say, like parallelly, we can have maximum 10 connections. If we have given initial connection as 0,
but
maximum,
yeah,
yeah.
increment we have given one, right? Like it will start with a one.
Okay. Mm, let's say, like as I said, we have minimum pool size as 0. Okay. Maximum pool size as 10 and pool increment size as a 1. Okay. So what is it saying? Like by using this connection, we can have maximum 10 thread at a time. Parallelly, we can have 10 threads which can be used to connect to a Oracle database. Now the minimum pool size represents like a, if there are no operations using this connection, if the connection is idle, so we are not necessary as a performance perspective, it is not necessary to connect to the Oracle database and just consume one thread. But as soon as, let's say, one operation starts connecting, now till the point the first operation is running, let's say this operation, let's say select a statement, this is still running, but I got one more request from integration server to use the same connection and do some insert operation. So it will not wait for this operation, the first operation, to complete or something, because we already have a 9 remaining threads present in our resource area, which we can still utilize. So it will take one more connection from the connection pool, and it will start running this insert operation. Similar way, if again the first and second operation is still running, and we got one more request to, let's say, to do delete operation, still we have the resource in the resource area, and we, the server take one more connection from the connection pool and start operating the operation. It will do till it consumes all the resources. So the maximum resources which we have defined in our configuration is 10. So once from the 0 till 10, I mean to say from 1 to 9, if everything is still running, let's say we are using some another select statement, if from the first operation till the last operation everything is running, and again we got some request to do use the same connection and do operation, the server will not allow. It will say you have exhausted your resource limits, either you have to wait to get the resource back. I mean to say we have a 10 resource, either you have to wait for some time to get some one of the resource free so that you can reuse that resource, or um, the runtime error happens stating that connection pool timeout or resource not available, something like that. Now it is clear like what exactly it means, like minimum pool size, maximum pool size, and pool increment size.
Yeah, like when we have minimum and maximum pool size, there is like why there is a need to get a increment.
Okay, okay, fine. So now coming to that point, why it is required. Let's say you have a scenario where you are interacting with a database, a business case scenario where you are interacting with the database, and you are running adapter queries very frequently or very often. Let's say you have to do operation. Let's say you have written a flow service where you are doing interacting with 100 kind of tables in a database, and you have to do operations and then switching over multiple kind of tables. In that case, let's say if I am giving the minimum pool size as 0 and maximum pool size, let's say just 2, and let's say pool increment size as a just 1. Now let's say each operation is taking around 10 to 15 minutes to consume it. So what will happen once the resources are fully consumed? If I have 100 operations to perform, after 2 operations the process will halt. It will try to wait to get the resource free, or otherwise if the resource is not free, it will throw an error because the service will not wait infinite time or just 1 hour just to get the resource free. So in those type of scenario, like we have to make our maximum pool size as let's say 100, so that based on our requirement, based on how frequently we are interacting with database and the number of times the interaction is more, we'll define the maximum pool size. And similar way we define the pool increments, how fast we have to increment the pool. For example, if we have defined maximum pool size and we have made the pool increment size as a 5, so every time the number of threads will increase by 5. So it's purely based on the requirement and how fast we have to execute the things.
Okay.
Okay, now coming to the block timeout, expire timeout, a startup retry count. Okay, now as you see, like let's say for a scenario where we are using a 10 resources and then we have pull increment size of 1, and if my all the resources are consumed, then we have to decide something, either how long we have to wait to get the resource free. For example, all the resources are consumed, how long each service has to wait to get the resource free. And let's say another service is coming, and how long this new operation or this new service has to wait to get a free resource from the thread pool. What I'm trying to say, let's say a scenario where all that we have a setup of where minimum pool size is 0, maximum pool size is 10, and the pool increment size is 1, and parallelly we have a 10 operations all are running and all the 10 threads are consumed. Now a new operation has come into picture. Now it has to wait because it knows my all the resources are consumed now, so I have to wait for some time. Let's say some, if I'll wait for some 10 second or 15 seconds, there might be a scenario one of the operations which were earlier running is completed and the resource will be free and we can utilize that resource. Second scenario is like how long the integration server will wait to complete that particular whatever the existing running resources to complete it. So the first scenario, I mean how long the new resource has to be waited, is given by expire timeout. So if all my resources are consumed and a new service is coming to picture, and we have to provide certain conditions like, okay, if you can wait for just 10 seconds, or might be if you can wait for the 15 second, you might get the resource free and you can utilize that resource. So that configuration is given in the expire timeout.
Like it will wait for 1,000 milliseconds, and after that it
Yes,
will throw an error if the connection is
correct,
not available.
correct. Now the second scenario where whatever the existing running services were there, okay, that is called as a block timeout. So once each thread, I am allocating some time which is called as second. So in this particular time second, you have to complete the services, or you have to get the resource back to the resource pool. So once if you're utilizing a resource, I'm giving you a time limit. You have to utilize this resource within that particular time second, and then you have to release the resource. That is called as a block timeout. Okay. Now these two like a starter retry count, starter back count is not at all used. So so we'll not discuss. Now coming to the most important part, which is called as the transaction type. Okay. Now you see we have a three properties, which one is called as local transaction, second is called axa, and third is called as the no transaction. Okay. So we'll discuss first the local transaction. So what happens, let's say we have Oracle database here. Now we have a table here. Let's say it is an employee table, and we are trying to insert some data in the employee table. So from our web methods perspective, I am doing some insert operation. Now if you have guys worked from normally from SQL or SQL developer, we have a concept called start transaction. So generally what happens, like if you're doing any DML operation where we are modifying the data of a particular databases, we try to make that changes permanent. So either we try to commit the transaction or we try to roll back the changes. So similar fashion, like the starting of a transaction, committing and rollbacking of transaction is defined using this parameter what we have given here as a transaction type. So based on the transaction type we select, whether we select a local transaction, no, or accept transaction, the way this structure like a start, commit and rollback, how exactly it will work when the transaction will start, when the transaction will commit, or when the transaction will roll back. Based on the type of transaction we use, it defines it. Now in web methods, once we use a local transaction, again there are two concepts. One is called as implicit transaction. One is called as explicit transaction. Okay. Now if we don't basically we don't have any option to choose where we can use I mean to say, we don't, there is no configuration parameter to define the implicit transaction or the explicit transaction. It's purely depend how we are going to define it. Basically for this start transaction, commit transaction and rollback transaction, we have been provided some services to start the transaction, to commit or to roll back the transaction. If we are using that services in our flow service, to start, to commit and or to roll back, that structure or that kind of definition we call it as explicit. So what I mean to say, we are explicitly defining in our flow services when we have to start the transaction, when we have to commit the transaction, and when we have to roll back the transaction. So I will show you like how exactly we do it. So that kind of transaction is called as the explicit transaction. uh, So, okay, coming to the first part, like what exactly the local transaction means. So, local transaction basically means whatever the operations we will doing, it will not be a auto commit kind of thing. So, either we have to depend on these services like start, commit or rollback services to force the operation to make the changes permanent or roll back the changes, or either we have to rely on integration server so that the integration server will make the changes permanent or roll back the changes. So that kind of operation is called as a local transaction operation. Now just now we discussed about the explicit. Now the same way, if we are relying on a start of a transaction, commit of a transaction or rollback of a transaction on integration server, That type of transaction is called as implicit transaction. Now how basically the start, commit or rollback happens, normally generally we'll have a flow service, so as soon as generally in a flow service the operation start from the top to the bottom. So when the flow service will run, integration server will start monitoring each and every step of a flow service, and as soon as it encounters any adapter services, the integration server will start the transaction. It will start the transaction for you. You don't have to explicitly start the transaction. Now once the services are completed, not the adapter service, once whole flow service is completed successfully, then the integration server will commit the transaction. If let's say the adapter service has been completed successfully, but after certain step the flow service was failed, even in that case of scenario the integration server will roll back. So when we are using an implicit transaction, we have to take care, like if the whole flow service is successful, then only the integration server will commit the whole process. If in any step the service will fail, even if the particular flow step is successful of or any, if in a particular case even the adapter service is successful, but after certain step the flow service got failed, the whole operation will be rolled back. So that is that's how the integration server will work as an implicit transaction. Okay, so first we'll go with local transaction, and I will show you how we choose as explicit and implicit. Okay, so I've already created one connection here. So basically using a local transaction, okay, which is connecting to my localhost server, username and password. Let's first check is there any table or not. Okay, so I have created a connection which is present in my package test JDBC connection, and the connection name is this. Now I'll create an adapter service. So just to create an adapter service, we have again I just created a separate folder for it. You can do it in the same folder. When we click on the folder and do right click, we'll have option called adapter service. So we have to select that particular adapter service template, and then you can provide any name. For example, if you're doing a select operation, provide any name. Then here it asks for what type of adapter. So I'm using a JDBC adapter, so I have selected this adapter. Now here it will list you all the adapter connections. So let's say if in this scenario if we have some 10 connections, so here it will show you all the 10 connections. So we have to choose that particular connection. So let's say I'm choosing this connection. Once I choose this connection, you see we have lots of template provided. So the select, update, insert, delete, these all are like predefined template. Custom SQL just now we discussed for custom template, and dynamic SQL for the dynamic template, and all these remaining thing I will tell you later. So let's say for example I'm using a select statement. Now once we have created a template, now it will give you a lots of options in the tab format. Like you see here we have a table option, we have joins, we have select, we have clause, and the adapter settings, and all those logging and comments. The important point is the table. So here we can choose the table name. So if you to select the table name, we have to use this. You see, we have lots of table already created. We can choose any of the table. Or if you want to create any other table, for example, I'm using WBM user. We can select any of the table or whatever the tables which is already present, or all those details it will show here. So once you select the table, we have to save it. Now after saving the table, let's say if you're going for a select operation, so we have to go to the select tab, and now you see we have multiple options here. Like one is called as a insert row, and second is fill all rows in the table. So what it means, whatever the tables I have selected, it has all these columns, and when I click on this one, it will automatically populate my template with all the columns present in that particular table. But let's say if a scenario where we want to select only some particular columns of a table, so we can select like this. We can select individually, and just will save it. Or if you want to select full, you have to just click, so it will select you each and every column present in that particular table. Now let's, once you have the table name and once you have the column name, now let's say if you want to put some where clause, we can give the details here. Like again, we have, like you see, we have multiple where clause we can give. So one, it can be chosen on any of the particular column. So we'll have a list of columns. We can choose on any of the particular column and give the where clause. So today we'll go with the very basic, like so what we have done, we have just select the table and we've done the select a statement and just save it. Okay, now to run this service, just like how we are running any flow service, we have to run this. Like, so we'll be given an option like a database username, password, and connection name. Now these are the input parameter of the service, which is not really required to pass. Okay, the reason why it has been given, I will tell you later. So once you click on OK, it will give you the result. So as of now the table is empty, I believe, so it didn't return you result. But once you click on, if the table has a data, it will give you a data result in this dataset format, having all the column name as a field parameter of the document. Till now, any confusion or any query?
No, Piyush.
Fine, in that case, like we'll continue tomorrow, okay, with the same thing.
Yeah.
Then we'll discuss further, and if we get the time, we'll discuss the handlers also. Okay.
Sure, Piyush.
Okay, guys. Tomorrow we'll meet at the same time. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks all for joining.